Listeners, this is James Carter with Susan John on the Last Signal Radio. The world is in immediate crisis. Earlier today, North Korea launched a catastrophic nuclear strike on Seoul. Eyewitnesses report towering mushroom clouds, collapsing buildings, and streets engulfed in fire and smoke. Casualties are staggering, already numbering in the millions. Communication is failing across the city. Emergency responders are overwhelmed. This strike marks the first urban nuclear detonation of the century, and its impact is both human and geopolitical. The global order has shifted within hours, and the world may never be the same.
James, eyewitness accounts describe a city reduced to chaos. Civilians flee in all directions, many trapped amid collapsing infrastructure. The United States and United Kingdom have launched immediate retaliatory strikes on key North Korean military hubs, attempting to neutralize further threats. NATO is already overstretched. European nations are still recovering from last year's extreme freeze and fallout. The international community is scrambling to respond, but coordination is slow and fractured. Tonight, humanity confronts a terrifying reality. Nuclear warfare is no longer theoretical. The unthinkable is happening, and there is no time to comprehend the scale of destruction.
Reports indicate that North Korea is preparing a second wave of missile strikes targeting the United States and Europe. Cities including Los Angeles, London, Paris, and Berlin are under imminent threat. Missile defense systems are active, but the scale of these attacks is unprecedented. Panic is spreading worldwide, with millions fleeing urban centers. Fallout from Seoul is already reaching neighboring countries. This night has shattered decades of nuclear taboo. What was once unthinkable is now unfolding in real time. Civilians and governments alike must face the horrifying consequences of escalation and the reality of a rapidly destabilizing world order.
Meanwhile, the Pacific Theater has erupted. China has launched a full-scale assault on Taiwan, with heavy bombardment and amphibious landings underway. Civilian casualties are immense, and refugee corridors are under attack. Japan and regional allies are attempting limited coordination, but their efforts are hampered by destruction, communication breakdowns, and ongoing strikes. In the first hours of this conflict, the scale of devastation and human suffering is unimaginable. Listeners, the world stands at the edge of an abyss, with nuclear escalation, territorial aggression, and civilian panic converging into a global catastrophe unlike anything witnessed before.
In the Americas, the situation is equally dire. Mexico and Canada are effectively occupied and administered under a Northern Stabilization Pact by Russia, China, and North Korea. The United States is mobilizing defenses along its borders, fortifying cities, and preparing for retaliatory strikes if provoked. Civilian populations are under curfew, and evacuations are underway in high-risk zones. The President is preparing a major address to signal resolve, condemn foreign occupation, and deliver a hardline ultimatum demanding withdrawal or facing consequences. The world watches, tense, as military and political stakes reach unprecedented heights.
Listeners, NATO's cohesion is crumbling. European capitals, many still recovering from nuclear fallout and extreme winter conditions, face fragmentation and destruction. France, Germany, and emerging coalitions attempt humanitarian and military coordination, yet the scale of devastation and global panic overwhelms every effort. Millions are displaced, infrastructure is failing, and basic services are collapsing. The psychological toll on civilians is immense. Across continents, citizens are fleeing, governments are fractured, and the very concept of safety is shattered. Tonight, humanity faces a stark new reality. Nuclear conflict is no longer a warning, it is happening, and the devastation has only just begun.
As reports continue to pour in, we are learning of unprecedented destruction in South Korea. with millions dead or injured. Fallout clouds drift toward Japan and China, threatening further contamination. Emergency systems are overwhelmed. Hospitals are collapsing. Meanwhile, the U.S. military remains active, operating from hardened command centers and airborne bases, coordinating defensive and offensive operations. The scale of this conflict is forcing nations into rapid, desperate decisions. Listeners, brace yourselves. The first hours of World War III have already rewritten history, and the global consequences of these initial strikes will unfold for weeks, months, and likely years to come.
James, civilians around the world are witnessing the unthinkable. News footage shows mushroom clouds, streets emptying, and communications collapsing. Panic, fear, and chaos are universal. Taiwan continues to resist heavy bombardment, demonstrating incredible resilience, yet suffering catastrophic losses. The threat of further escalation looms as North Korea prepares additional strikes and global powers scramble to respond. Tonight, we are no longer observers of a distant conflict, we are living it. Humanity faces an unprecedented convergence of nuclear warfare, territorial aggression, and global panic, and survival may hinge on swift, decisive action in the hours to come.
Listeners, even as the first strikes subside, the shockwaves ripple across every continent. Cities are devastated, infrastructure obliterated, and millions of lives destroyed. NATO allies struggle to coordinate, while civilians face unimaginable peril. The psychological impact is immediate. Fear, grief, and disbelief are everywhere. The United States, while heavily damaged, retains significant military capacity and is preparing a calculated response. Tonight, we witness the dawn of nuclear normalization, where the unthinkable becomes reality, and the very foundations of global order are collapsing before our eyes.
Listeners, as darkness falls over devastated cities and tense capitals, we must understand the magnitude of what is occurring. Nuclear weapon use is no longer taboo. The first wave of detonations has caused irrevocable destruction, and retaliation is ongoing. Millions of civilians are caught in the crossfire, fleeing, sheltering, or perishing. The political and humanitarian fallout will last decades. Humanity has entered a new era of vulnerability, where survival depends on rapid response, coordination, and the ability to adapt to unprecedented chaos. This is World War III, and the first night has already shown its true horror.
Listeners, the conflict has spread beyond Korea. North Korea has launched a massive missile salvo targeting the United States and Europe. Cities including Los Angeles, London, Paris, and Berlin are under imminent threat. Missile defenses are active, but the scale is overwhelming. Millions of civilians are fleeing urban centers as emergency systems collapse. Panic is spreading faster than aid or military coordination. This escalation marks a turning point. The world is no longer watching from a distance. Nuclear conflict is here, and its consequences will echo for generations.
James, across the Pacific, China has launched a full-scale assault on Taiwan. Heavy bombardment and amphibious landings are underway. Despite catastrophic losses, Taiwan continues to resist with remarkable resilience. Refugee corridors are under attack, and international aid is almost impossible to deliver. Japan and regional allies are attempting intervention, but communication breakdowns hinder coordination. The human cost is staggering, and millions are trapped in conflict zones. The nightmare of simultaneous nuclear and conventional war is unfolding in real time, leaving civilians and military alike in unprecedented peril.
South Asia has erupted into nuclear conflict. India and Pakistan have exchanged strikes, devastating major cities and critical infrastructure. Millions are dead or injured, and surrounding regions face radiation and infrastructure collapse. Governments struggle to maintain order as civilians flee in chaos. NATO's ability to coordinate global defense is further compromised by simultaneous crises on multiple continents. The escalation demonstrates that nuclear warfare is no longer theoretical. It is real, immediate, and indiscriminate. Humanity faces a scale of devastation and fear never seen in modern history, and no nation is safe from the fallout.
Meanwhile, the United States is scrambling to respond. Airborne command centers coordinate defensive and offensive operations while hardened bunkers maintain continuity of government. Evacuations are underway, but panic dominates. Mexico and Canada remain under occupation by foreign powers, stretching U.S. forces. Power grids are failing, communication networks are collapsing, and misinformation spreads rapidly. The President is preparing a major address to signal resolve, condemn occupation, and outline military and diplomatic measures. Tonight, survival is uncertain, and the global order is on the brink of collapse.
In Europe, NATO is fragmented. Capitals like Berlin and Paris face destruction, and governments struggle to maintain coordination. Humanitarian aid is barely reaching affected populations. Millions are displaced, facing famine, radiation exposure, and collapsing infrastructure. Taiwan continues its resistance, but losses mount. Across continents, citizens confront the reality that nuclear warfare has become normalized. Panic, fear, and chaos dominate daily life. Listeners, the first wave of escalation has proven that no nation is immune. Survival is uncertain, and every decision carries irreversible consequences in this rapidly deteriorating world.
Listeners, the devastation is global. Cities are flattened, infrastructure is destroyed, and governments struggle to maintain authority. North Korea's missile salvo, combined with the India-Pakistan nuclear exchange and China's assault on Taiwan, has pushed humanity to the brink. Millions are displaced, emergency systems fail, and mass panic spreads worldwide. Communication networks falter, and misinformation is rampant. The psychological toll is immense. Every nation feels the impact directly or indirectly. Tonight, the world watches as civilization faces its greatest existential threat, with nuclear escalation and global chaos now reality rather than possibility.
In the Americas, U.S. cities brace for additional missile threats. Los Angeles, Houston, and New York are on high alert, with citizens evacuating and military units mobilizing. Mexico and Canada remain under occupation, stretching defensive operations. Civilian infrastructure is under stress, emergency shelters overwhelmed, and public panic intensifies. The President's hardline measures aim to secure borders and prepare for retaliation if provoked. The first days of World War III reveal the terrifying efficiency of modern nuclear warfare and the fragility of global systems designed to prevent catastrophe.
James, the human cost is unimaginable. Millions dead or injured, entire cities in ruins, and governments struggling to maintain authority. Nuclear fallout spreads across continents, contaminating air, water, and soil. Emergency systems collapse under the strain, and civilians face chaos with little guidance. Taiwan's resilience is inspiring, but the cost is immense. Europe is fractured, South Asia devastated, and North America under threat. This is not theoretical warfare. It is global, instantaneous, and overwhelming. The world is in chaos, and survival depends on coordination, adaptation, and sheer resilience.
The first 48 hours of global escalation are catastrophic. Millions displaced, billions watching the horror unfold. NATO allies struggle to maintain cohesion, and emerging coalitions attempt humanitarian relief with limited success. Taiwan and other resistant nations fight against. Overwhelming forces. The world is witnessing the normalization of nuclear strikes, the collapse of communication and aid networks, and a new reality of permanent fear. Listeners, humanity is no longer in control. We are reacting to forces that exceed imagination. The next hours and days will determine if survival is possible.
Listeners, the planet is in crisis. Nuclear strikes, missile salvos, and conventional warfare converge simultaneously. Millions are dead, infrastructure destroyed, and global order fractured. Panic, radiation, and displacement dominate daily life. The president prepares to deliver an address signaling resolve, yet uncertainty prevails. Every nation, every city, every individual faces a perilous reality. The first night of global escalation has rewritten history. Survival, humanity, and the future of civilization now hang in the balance. This is World War III, and it has only just begun.
Listeners, the United States is now fully mobilizing. Airborne command centers coordinate global military operations, while hardened facilities maintain continuity of government. The President has just addressed the nation, delivering a message of unflinching resolve. Evacuations continue in major cities as defensive systems are activated. Mexico and Canada remain under foreign occupation, stretching U.S. resources. Citizens are frightened, infrastructure is failing, and panic spreads. Tonight, every decision could determine life or death for millions. The world watches as America faces simultaneous nuclear threats and territorial aggression. Suzanne, can you quote the President's speech for listeners?
Yes, of course, James. The President's speech was forceful and unyielding. The speech is, as the President of the United States, we condemn foreign occupation, nuclear aggression, and any attacks on sovereign nations. The United States will support affected countries with defense, aid, and restoration efforts. Sovereignty, freedom, and justice will be defended at all costs. We stand with all nations suffering from aggression and devastation. The United States will act decisively against those who violate international order, and our commitment is unwavering. To Russia, China, and any who threaten our homeland, withdraw your forces from occupied territories immediately. Failure to comply will unleash consequences beyond imagination. The United States will defend its soil, its people, and its sovereignty with overwhelming force. Make no mistake, those who challenge us will regret going against the United States of America. The address is meant to project control and power, but it also underscores the severity of the ongoing global crisis. Fear and determination ripple across the nation simultaneously.
Following the address, U.S. military forces have launched coordinated counterstrikes against strategic enemy positions. Defensive missile systems are fully operational, and evacuation efforts continue in major urban centers. Panic dominates civilian life, while communication breakdowns amplify confusion. Listeners, the magnitude of these operations highlights the unprecedented scale of this conflict. Nuclear war is no longer theoretical, and every action carries irreversible consequences.
James, millions of civilians are fleeing cities as nuclear fallout spreads globally. Hospitals, already overwhelmed by casualties, face shortages of food, medicine, and staff. The President's words resonate across the world. We will not be intimidated. We will not retreat. Those who seek to challenge the United States to occupy what is ours will face the full might of our military. Let it be known, the American people will endure and our enemies will pay the price in full. The nation braces for retaliation, yet determination is palpable.
In Europe, NATO is fragmented, and capitals face missile threats and radiation from prior attacks. Emerging coalitions attempt coordination, but humanitarian aid struggles to reach survivors. Millions of civilians are displaced, infrastructure failing. Taiwan continues its resistance, but losses are catastrophic. The first wave of escalation shows that no nation is immune, No civilian safe, and no strategy guaranteed. Humanity stands on the brink, and every decision carries global repercussions.
Taiwan's resistance remains fierce despite overwhelming assault. Evacuation corridors are under fire, and regional allies struggle to provide support. Millions of civilians are caught in the crossfire. The president's ultimatum is clear and uncompromising. The United States will defend its borders, its citizens, and its allies. Any aggression, any attempt to seize what is not yours will be met with relentless force. Let the world bear witness. Those who threaten freedom will face retribution the likes of which history has never known. Fear is intense, but resolve is undeniable.
American cities remain on high alert. Evacuations, defensive operations, and missile intercept systems are fully engaged. Mexico and Canada's occupation stretches U.S. resources, leaving the homeland tense and vulnerable. Civilian panic is widespread. Military operations abroad continue to contain escalating threats. Every decision, every missile launched or intercepted, reshapes the global landscape. Humanity confronts the terrifying reality of nuclear warfare on multiple fronts.
Fallout from South Asia and North Korea's missile attacks continues to spread, affecting Europe and Asia. Millions are displaced, and infrastructure across continents is collapsing. The president's speech echoes across the globe. To those who threaten our people, your aggression ends now. The United States will respond with overwhelming power. Sovereignty, freedom, and human life will be defended at all costs. Make no mistake, those who defy us will pay a price they cannot imagine. Listeners, the stakes could not be higher. The world braces for the consequences.
The first days of mobilization reveal the complexity and fragility of global response. Airborne command centers, hardened facilities, and frontline operations are all active. Millions are displaced. NATO and allied coordination is fragile. Every action carries the risk of escalation or catastrophic fallout. Listeners, the president's ultimatum is firm, but the reality is grim. Humanity faces simultaneous nuclear, conventional, and territorial conflict on a scale never seen before. Survival now depends on rapid adaptation, strategic coordination, and resilience.
As night falls, the scale of devastation becomes clear. Millions dead, cities in ruins, governments fractured, emergency systems overwhelmed. The president's words reverberate worldwide. The United States will not bow, will not hesitate, and will not fail its people. Those who challenge our sovereignty will face destruction beyond reckoning. History will remember tonight. America stood resolute, and any who oppose us will regret it. Evacuations continue, defenses mobilized, and civilians brace for what comes next. Nuclear normalization, global conflict, and chaos now define reality. Survival hangs by a thread.
Listeners, the unthinkable is now reality. Nuclear strikes have shattered the world's sense of safety, and the United States has initiated its first counterstrikes against China and Russia. Precision operations target military hubs, command centers, and strategic installations while trying to minimize civilian casualties. Yet millions remain in shelters, infrastructure is failing, and panic spreads. The world is witnessing the normalization of nuclear warfare. Humanity confronts a terrifying reality. Retaliation has begun, and the cycle of destruction may escalate beyond comprehension.
James, the first U.S. counterattacks are underway. Airborne command centers coordinate strikes against Chinese and Russian military targets while missile defense systems protect major American cities. The president's directive is clear. Our strikes are precise, measured, and unavoidable. Those who threaten our people and sovereignty will feel the full force of American resolve. Let the world bear witness. Any act of aggression against the United States will be met with absolute retaliation. Millions of civilians are already displaced, and fear dominates daily life. The globe braces for the consequences.
Across Europe, NATO attempts coordination, but fragmentation and infrastructure collapse hinder responses. Germany, France, and the UK struggle to maintain stability as fallout from prior strikes contaminates air and water. Meanwhile, U.S. attacks on Russia have triggered retaliatory measures, further destabilizing global security. Millions face exposure to radiation, shortages of essentials, and constant fear of further strikes. Listeners, humanity is confronting a new type of war, one where nuclear conflict is no longer theoretical, but ongoing, global, and unpredictable.
James, in Asia, Taiwan faces the full weight of China's assault, yet U.S. counterstrikes provide strategic support, buying time for civilians and military units. North Korea, observing the U.S. and Allied response, remains on high alert. Fallout from India-Pakistan exchanges compounds the crisis. Millions are displaced, hospitals are overwhelmed, and essential services collapse. The President's words resonate. The United States will not hesitate. Those who threaten our people will face consequences unlike anything they have ever imagined. Our resolve is absolute. Fear and determination coexist across nations tonight.
The first U.S. attacks mark a pivotal escalation. Cities in Russia and China face targeted strikes. Military hubs are under siege, and retaliatory threats loom. Millions of civilians are trapped in conflict zones, and global panic surges. Humanitarian aid is slow and dangerous. Europe struggles to respond to nuclear fallout and missile threats. Listeners, the world now navigates a reality where nuclear escalation is immediate, unpredictable, and catastrophic. Survival is no longer abstract. It is urgent, daily, and uncertain.
In North America, U.S. citizens brace for secondary waves from retaliatory strikes. Defensive systems intercept some attacks, but destruction remains significant. Mexico and Canada remain occupied, stretching military resources. Evacuations continue across the U.S., yet millions live in fear and uncertainty. The war economy operates at peak capacity, and civilian coordination is critical for survival. The President emphasizes resolve. Our strikes are precise, our defense unwavering. Any aggression against the United States will be met with relentless power. The world will see the consequences of threatening our people.
South Asia remains a nightmare of nuclear fallout. India and Pakistan struggle with contamination, societal collapse, and mass displacement. Millions of civilians face famine, disease, and radiation. Across continents, the U.S. counterstrikes complicate global dynamics, prompting further retaliation from affected nations. Listeners, nuclear normalization has reached a tipping point. Humanity confronts simultaneous destruction, displacement, and fear on a global scale. Survival is a daily struggle, and strategy, coordination, and resilience are the only paths forward.
Europe continues to reel. Capitals such as Berlin, Paris, and London face radiation, fallout, and infrastructure collapse. Humanitarian relief is perilous and fragmented. Millions are displaced or trapped, facing famine and disease. The U.S. strikes on Russia and China signal resolve, but also escalate the global crisis. Listeners, the psychological impact is immense. Fear dominates daily life, trust in government wavers, and societies grapple with the reality of widespread nuclear conflict. Humanity is learning in real time the catastrophic consequences of escalation.
Across continents, emergency response is stretched to the breaking point. Millions of civilians navigate destroyed infrastructure and fallout zones. Communication is intermittent, leaving many isolated and vulnerable. U.S. strikes are precise, but retaliation is inevitable. Listeners, Humanity faces simultaneous threats: nuclear fallout, conventional attacks, and societal collapse. Survival now depends on rapid adaptation, strategic decision-making, and sheer endurance. The world has entered a new epoch, one where no nation is safe, and chaos reigns across every continent.
As night deepens, the consequences of the U.S. strikes on China and Russia ripple globally. Millions are displaced, cities lie in ruin, and governments struggle to maintain authority. The president's hardline stance is clear. We will not yield. We will strike with precision, strength, and inevitability. Those who threaten our sovereignty will face consequences beyond imagination. America's resolve is absolute, and the world will remember this day. Listeners, humanity faces a terrifying new reality where survival, adaptation, and resilience are the only constants.
Listeners, the unthinkable is now reality. Nuclear strikes have shattered the world's sense of safety, and the United States has initiated its counterstrikes against China and Russia. Precision operations target military hubs, command centers, and strategic installations while trying to minimize civilian casualties. Yet millions remain in shelters. Infrastructure is failing, and panic spreads. The world is witnessing the normalization of nuclear warfare. Humanity confronts a terrifying reality. Retaliation has begun, and the cycle of destruction may escalate beyond comprehension.
James, the first U.S. counterattacks are underway. Airborne command centers coordinate strikes against Chinese and Russian military targets while missile defense systems protect major American cities. The president's directive is clear. Our strikes are precise, measured, and unavoidable. Those who threaten our people and sovereignty will feel the full force of American resolve. Let the world bear witness. Any act of aggression against the United States will be met with absolute retaliation. Millions of civilians are already displaced, and fear dominates daily life. The globe braces for the consequences.
In the United States, defensive measures are in full swing. Airborne command centers coordinate counterstrikes, while ground and missile defenses protect major cities. Citizens are evacuated in large numbers, yet panic continues to spread. Power grids are failing, food and medical supplies are scarce, and misinformation is rampant. Mexico and Canada's occupation adds strain to resources. Every decision carries enormous stakes. One miscalculation could trigger further nuclear escalation. Listeners, this is not war as history has known it. This is global chaos, instantaneous and inescapable.
James, the psychological toll is immense. Panic grips populations worldwide. Parents fear for children. Families are separated, and civil order has broken down in many cities. Millions are now displaced, seeking shelter from radiation and attacks. The president continues to project resolve, signaling that counterstrikes will continue and foreign occupation will be challenged. Yet fear dominates every street, every home. Humanity's fragile systems are failing under the pressure of simultaneous nuclear, conventional, and territorial conflicts. Listeners, this is a night that will be remembered for generations, an era defined by global panic and nuclear normalization.
Across continents, Europe is fractured. Capitals like Berlin, Paris, and London struggle to maintain governance amid mass destruction. Nuclear fallout, missile strikes, and conventional warfare create an interconnected catastrophe. Millions face shortages of food, medicine, and shelter. Humanitarian aid is hindered by collapsed infrastructure and ongoing attacks. The world watches as entire regions teeter on the brink of collapse. Listeners, the first days of World War III have shattered notions of safety, revealing a reality where no nation, no city, and no individual is immune.
Asia is equally devastated. Taiwan continues to resist China's assault, but civilian casualties mount. India and Pakistan's nuclear exchange has rendered cities uninhabitable. Radiation, scarcity, and fear dominate daily life. Millions are displaced, and millions more live under constant threat of further attacks. Global humanitarian organizations struggle to respond. Listeners, this is a catastrophic event on a scale never witnessed. Civilization itself is being tested, and humanity's survival depends on swift adaptation, strategic planning, and resilience under unimaginable pressure.
In the Americas, U.S. citizens face continuous alerts and evacuations. Los Angeles, New York, and Houston brace for missile threats. Mexico and Canada remain occupied, forcing the U.S. military to stretch resources. Civilian panic is widespread, with millions seeking shelter and essentials. Communication breakdowns compound chaos. The global order has fractured, and nations are reacting independently, often at cross purposes. Nuclear normalization has made devastation predictable, yet uncontrollable. Listeners, humanity faces a world where fear, destruction, and uncertainty are constants.
James, the ripple effect is global. Radiation and fallout contaminate regions far from initial strikes. Millions of civilians face exposure, famine, and disease. Infrastructure collapse prevents coordination of aid, and displaced populations swell refugee corridors worldwide. Governments struggle to maintain authority, military and civilian alike. The psychological toll is immeasurable. Fear dominates daily life, and hope is fragile. The normalization of nuclear strikes has fundamentally altered reality. Listeners, humanity confronts an era where survival is no longer guaranteed, and global chaos is the new constant.
Europe, Asia, and the Americas are linked in an unprecedented crisis. NATO is fragmented, coalitions attempt aid with limited success, and populations face daily threats from missiles, radiation, and conventional warfare. Millions dead, millions displaced, and millions more living in terror. Every action is scrutinized. Every decision carries global consequences. Listeners, the scale of devastation is incomprehensible. Humanity faces a new epoch where nuclear normalization, geopolitical collapse, and societal panic define existence. There is no sanctuary. Survival is a desperate struggle that will define generations to come.
As the world enters this new reality, the stakes have never been higher. Millions dead, cities in ruins, governments fractured, and populations in panic. Communication systems fail, food and medical supplies dwindle, and global trust is collapsing. The president's hardline stance and countermeasures continue, but the human cost is immense. Listeners, World War III has shattered every boundary, geopolitical, technological, and moral. Survival now depends on coordination, resilience, and sheer will. Humanity faces a terrifying truth. Chaos is universal, and the age of uncertainty has only just begun.
Listeners, the world braces for retaliatory strikes. The United States has authorized full-scale counterattacks against North Korea, Russia, and China. Strategic targets are being engaged, while missile defense systems remain active over major cities. Airborne command centers coordinate global operations, ensuring civilian areas are protected when possible. Yet the scale of destruction is staggering. Millions remain in shelters, and communication networks are partially operational. This is a calculated response, but the human cost continues to escalate. Listeners, the world now faces a cycle of attack and retaliation unlike anything in history.
James, the U.S. war economy is in full swing. Factories operate around the clock, military supply lines are stretched to their limits, and recruitment surges across the nation. Civilians are mobilized for civil defense, and emergency services struggle to maintain order. Despite this, panic continues to spread. Millions are displaced, cities lie in ruin, and global infrastructure teeters on collapse. The President's resolve is clear. We will not waver. Our retaliation is precise, unstoppable, and inevitable. Those who threaten our people will face consequences beyond comprehension. Humanity braces for the unfolding storm.
In Europe, NATO allies attempt coordinated strikes, but the fragmented coalition struggles with communication failures and logistical challenges. Germany, France, and the UK deploy missile defenses and tactical countermeasures, yet millions of civilians remain in harm's way. Fallout from prior strikes contaminates air, water, and soil, compounding panic. The humanitarian crisis escalates daily, and international aid is limited. Listeners, the cycle of destruction and retaliation has entered a new phase. Global survival depends on strategy, resilience, and rapid adaptation. Every decision could be the difference between life and death for millions.
James, in the Pacific, Taiwan's resistance remains heroic, yet the Chinese offensive intensifies. Cities and ports are devastated, and refugees face relentless bombardment. Japan and allied forces attempt tactical interventions, but casualties mount. Millions are trapped between conflict and fallout, and global panic spreads with every missile launched. The President's speech earlier emphasized unwavering resolve. We will defend every inch of sovereign territory and every life threatened. Our response is deliberate, precise, and absolute. Those who test our strength will be destroyed. The consequences of failure are unthinkable.
South Asia remains a nightmare of nuclear devastation. India and Pakistan's exchanges have rendered major cities uninhabitable. Fallout contaminates surrounding regions, and humanitarian corridors collapse under sheer chaos. Millions of survivors are displaced, struggling with radiation, famine, and disease. Governments scramble to maintain authority, but public order is failing. Listeners, the interconnectedness of global health and safety is painfully clear. Nuclear conflict anywhere is catastrophic everywhere. Humanity now faces simultaneous crises in multiple regions, and the consequences will ripple for decades.
In North America, U.S. cities brace for secondary threats from North Korea and Russia. Air defenses intercept some missiles, but destruction remains widespread. Millions remain in shelters, facing rolling blackouts and shortages of essentials. Mexico and Canada are still under occupation, stretching resources. The war economy is fully operational, but citizens fear the worst. The President continues to project strength. To all who threaten us, the United States is unyielding. Retaliation will be swift, absolute, and decisive. Our enemies will learn the full cost of challenging freedom and sovereignty.
Global panic escalates. Refugees surge across borders, emergency services collapse, and critical infrastructure fails. Communications are fragmented, making coordination of aid nearly impossible. Millions live in fear, unsure whether to flee, hide, or prepare for further destruction. The psychological toll is immense, with despair and terror spreading faster than physical devastation. Listeners, the world is entering a prolonged period of chaos and survival, where every action carries monumental consequences. Humanity confronts the limits of endurance and the fragility of civilization.
James, in Europe, NATO capitals struggle to maintain control amid strikes and fallout. Germany, France, and the UK deploy emergency measures, but millions are exposed to radiation, famine, and societal collapse. Communication networks are fractured, and misinformation fuels panic. Cities are effectively in survival mode, with citizens barricading themselves and military personnel stretched thin. Listeners, the global order is collapsing under the weight of retaliation, destruction, and fear. Humanity is forced into a survival mindset where strategic decisions, adaptation, and resilience determine who lives and who perishes.
Across continents, the scale of devastation is staggering. Millions dead, millions displaced, infrastructure collapsing. Nuclear strikes, missile attacks, and conventional warfare converge simultaneously. Emergency services fail to respond, and governments struggle to maintain control. Listeners, the first retaliatory strikes mark a pivotal moment. Humanity faces a cycle of destruction and response that could last indefinitely. The fragility of civilization is exposed, and the very concept of safety has been shattered. Survival depends on courage, strategy, and the ability to endure unimaginable fear and loss.
As night falls, the world remains in chaos. Fallout spreads, cities burn, and millions struggle to survive. The U.S. continues its retaliatory campaign with precision and force. The president's uncompromising words echo globally. We will not falter. We will strike with precision and strength. Any threat to our people, our land, or our allies will be met with destruction. Let all who oppose freedom understand there is no escape from our resolve. Listeners, humanity faces a terrifying new reality where survival is measured in strategy, courage, and endurance.
Listeners, the world awakens to devastation of a scale unprecedented in modern memory. Major cities lie in ruins, entire populations displaced, and millions dead from a combination of nuclear fallout, famine, disease, and the cascading failures of infrastructure. Governments struggle to maintain even minimal authority as emergency services collapse and societal order teeters on the brink. In Europe, capitals labor to rebuild while contending with radiation exposure, destroyed transport networks, and mass casualties. Across Asia and North America, survivors navigate rubble-strewn streets, scarce resources, and pervasive panic. Humanity is confronted with a sobering truth. Survival is no longer guaranteed, and civilization has been fractured at its very core. Yet, even amid despair, glimmers of resilience appear. Small pockets of coordination, resistance, and ingenuity hint that recovery, though arduous, may still be possible. The struggle to rebuild has begun, and fragile hope flickers against the darkness.
James, in the United States, despite catastrophic attacks and widespread destruction, efforts to mobilize military, humanitarian, and civil operations continue. Airborne command centers coordinate relief missions, while frontline units secure key areas and attempt to restore order. Neighboring nations such as Mexico and Canada remain occupied or heavily affected, yet counter-operations and relief efforts are underway. Civilians who survive nuclear strikes, missile attacks, and the collapse of local infrastructure face the daunting task of rebuilding lives in an environment of scarcity, fear, and uncertainty. Slowly, global communication networks are being restored, reconnecting displaced populations and enabling coordination across devastated regions. Listeners, amidst the chaos, humanity begins to show resilience. Small, determined acts of courage and cooperation signal that, even in the shadow of unprecedented destruction, survival remains possible and that the human spirit endures.
Europe remains fractured, a continent grappling with destruction on a scale few could have imagined. Cities like Berlin, Paris, and London are unrecognizable. Entire districts leveled, key infrastructure destroyed, and radiation contamination forcing mass evacuations. Basic services, water, electricity, transport, are intermittent or non-existent. and famine spreads as supply chains collapse. NATO, though severely weakened, strives to coordinate what relief it can alongside emerging coalitions led by France, Germany, Qatar, and Japan. Yet every effort is met with logistical nightmares, security threats, and environmental hazards. Millions of displaced people traverse hostile landscapes, navigating debris-littered roads, radiation zones, and lawless regions in search of shelter, medical aid, and food. Borders have shifted, political hierarchies have been disrupted, and the global balance of power is in flux. Listeners, the aftermath of this devastation reveals not only the staggering physical destruction, but also the extraordinary endurance of humanity, the ability to survive, adapt, and resist, even when civilization itself teeters on the brink of collapse. Coordination, ingenuity, and sheer will become the only tools capable of sustaining life in this fractured landscape.
James, across Asia, the devastation is equally profound. Taiwan struggles to recover from the aftermath of the Chinese assault, its cities partially leveled and populations displaced. India and Pakistan continue to face the catastrophic consequences of nuclear exchanges, with millions exposed to radiation, scarcity, and disease. Local communities organize emergency relief efforts, construct makeshift shelters, and ration dwindling resources, often under constant threat from environmental hazards and civil unrest. North Korea's infrastructure lies in ruins following retaliatory strikes, leaving its citizens isolated and vulnerable. Across the globe, the war economy is transitioning. Military production shifts toward reconstruction, emergency logistics, and humanitarian support, but the scale of the challenge is immense. Listeners, while the world remains scarred, fragile, and chaotic, the flicker of human resilience endures. Survival is far from assured, yet through collective coordination, strategic planning, and solidarity, pockets of humanity are finding a way to navigate the shattered remnants of civilization, demonstrating that even in the shadow of unprecedented destruction, hope, determination, and the will to endure remain alive.
In the Americas, U.S. cities struggle to rebuild while simultaneously maintaining security against ongoing threats. Evacuation efforts have saved millions, yet casualties remain staggering, and entire neighborhoods lie in ruins. The occupation of regions in Mexico and Canada complicates border security, relief distribution, and strategic coordination, forcing communities to improvise in extraordinary ways. Across the continent, survivors construct makeshift shelters, temporary medical stations, and decentralized food distribution networks, relying on ingenuity and mutual aid to endure. Millions of citizens navigate daily trauma, grief, and fear, while governments, local authorities, and volunteers work tirelessly to restore even a semblance of order. Listeners, the aftermath of this war has irrevocably altered geopolitics, infrastructure, and the human psyche. Yet, amid the chaos, the determination to survive, rebuild, and protect the vulnerable remains unwavering. Humanity faces its most daunting test, but also witnesses the depth of its resilience, creativity, and capacity for solidarity in the face of near-total devastation.
James, the nuclear escalation has permanently reshaped not only warfare, but the global perception of security. Radiation zones scar the land, major cities remain partially or fully destroyed, and economic collapse has swept through affected regions. Millions mourn the loss of loved ones, while survivors confront a reality defined by scarcity, uncertainty, and fear. Yet even in the midst of destruction, pockets of governance, organization, and aid begin to emerge. Communities coordinating relief efforts, medical teams tending the wounded, and volunteers distributing essentials. The president continues to oversee defenses and relief operations, signaling that the nation will resist yielding to external threats despite the immense challenges. Listeners, even amid ruin, humanity takes its first tentative steps toward recovery, where survival, cooperation, and shared purpose become the pillars of hope in a fractured and broken world.
Across continents, the scars of devastation remain vivid. Radiation, famine, and disease continue to threaten millions, while global trade, travel, and communication remain heavily disrupted. Displaced civilians traverse hazardous landscapes in search of food, shelter, and safety, often confronting hostile conditions and scarce resources. Yet, in the midst of chaos, communities begin to self-organize, establishing local protection groups, rationing supplies, and coordinating aid distribution. Military forces, though stretched thin and facing immense logistical challenges, provide critical support to stabilize regions and protect survivors. Listeners, the world faces a monumental challenge in restoring society from the brink of collapse. But these early signs of organization, ingenuity, and resilience reveal that humanity is not yet defeated. The path from devastation to recovery will be long, arduous, and uncertain. But survival and reconstruction remain within reach for those willing to adapt and persevere.
James, across Europe, Asia, and North America, humanitarian efforts are slowly consolidating, coordinating medical relief, food distribution, and radiation monitoring to reach the most vulnerable. Millions of civilians remain exposed to peril, yet local collaboration, improvisation, and acts of courage shine through the darkness. Governments struggle to reassert authority, but grassroots leadership and community networks are proving essential lifelines. In cities and rural areas alike, survivors organize to provide shelter, medical aid, and protection, often relying on shared knowledge, trust, and resourcefulness. Listeners, this global crisis has exposed both the fragility of modern civilization and its remarkable capacity for adaptation, cooperation, and endurance. Humanity stands at the edge of ruin, yet a spark of hope persists, carried forward by those determined to survive, rebuild, and restore the world from the wreckage of catastrophe.
The first week following global escalation has left an indelible scar on human history. Millions have perished, entire cities lie in ruins, and governments struggle to maintain authority amid chaos. Yet, amidst this devastation, small victories begin to emerge. Communities self-organize to provide aid. Survivors assist one another, and military units coordinate to secure essential regions and restore minimal order. The normalization of nuclear conflict, widespread territorial occupation, and large-scale conventional warfare have reshaped the geopolitical and social landscape permanently. Listeners, this is a moment of reckoning. Humanity has witnessed the consequences of unchecked aggression, destruction, and fear, but it has also glimpsed the resilience, ingenuity, and determination that allow recovery, survival, and the long, arduous task of rebuilding a shattered world.
As night falls across the globe, the world remains deeply scarred, yet life persists. Survivors tend to the wounded, reconstruct shelters from debris, and establish new networks of communication and support across fractured regions. Millions mourn the loss of loved ones, yet determination continues to drive action. The President coordinates defense and relief operations, signaling that America and the international community will endure despite catastrophic losses. Listeners, this crisis has laid bare both the fragility of civilization and the extraordinary capacity of humanity to adapt, resist, and survive. This marks the end of the first phase of global catastrophe and the beginning of a new era, one where survival, cooperation, and resilience will define the human story and the path forward in a broken yet not defeated world. This is the last Signal Radio. This broadcast ends here. Thanks for listening.